introduced. Hopefully an Ashe that we have seen being brought up from the likes of MVP. But now here we are going into the draft. It will be a ban on that Olaf. I'm pretty sure that the panelists is already shaking their head. You know, not high win ratios overall, but you got to say that Olaf overall has a really solid early game phase where he could just clear the jungle real quickly and set up for ganks. Now, no Rengar in the jungle as well, as Bigetron has already eliminated a lot of all these uncertainties.
I know Riku at least is getting real angry. So, the panelists will have something to talk about as the early bans do target the jungle. If you're just joining us, maybe you didn't manage to catch the playoff stages. First of all, or the group stages. First of all, we had some great games. Second of all, just to set the stage, SBTC did play in a very stacked group with EVOS and Team Secret in it. They kind of struggled in the group stage, but they were able to get out. They did look comfortable. They're the first seed out of the Vietnam region, and I can't wait to see what they bring here. Indonesia, or Bigetron on the other side, were the second seed out of the Indonesia region, and they crawled out of the group with Alliance and Amihan in it, both of whom were formidable opponents. So I don't think we have a really good handle on how these teams will stack up based on their group stage performance, because both groups were just full of such good competitors.
Yeah, and just having them actually make it out of the groups is already a great sign overall. But, you know, the hurdle is not over just about yet. Now, going back into this draft, let's look at Bigetron Esports. They are playing to their strength. They're looking for those big team fights, and this is where the Wukong comes in real handy. You can place it in the jungle, you can place it over the Baron lane as well, whichever way it works. But I believe that it's easier to actually set up a lot of all these ganks as well as dives by having him in the jungle and being paired up with a Tristana here. You can definitely get a little bit more room for this marksman of Bigetron's Esports to really work things around, and having even more room for the Braum to play aggressively.
One of the things I'm seeing from Bigetron with that Tristana pick, though, is what we talk about. Malphite kind of solidifies that for me. This is a team that wants to last until the late game and then win the late game 5v5s. Bigetron have achieved that with this draft. SBTC on the other side, they're going to be able to go in during the mid game, during the early game, behind that Jarvan Ezreal, and really find early success, find mid-game success. So it comes down to these first couple of fights as we kick off the playoffs. SBTC take to the rift against Bigetron in the very first best of 5 of the Summer Super Cup.
So far, so good, as we are looking at a very early aggressive movement coming in from SBTC Esports bottom lane. No leash being provided for the Jarvan, but he should be able to clear things up really quickly. While Julie, well, he's already soaking up a little bit of damage, but let's talk through the top lane matchup to actually kick things off here, because Minas is taking a Barret as compared to, you know, aggressive maneuvers with the Ignite. Meanwhile, Fab1, I believe he's working towards a early Bamboo Vest to negate all these damage output that Minas could actually chunk out, and this is evidently why.
Yeah, that sucked. And Malphite is just going to have that happen to him over and over again in lane until we get to the mid-late game, at which point Malphite becomes a bit of a terror. But during this early phase, Minas is just going to get to bully him a little bit.
Yeah, and speaking of getting bullied, it seems like Henry's not really having a good time in mid lane either, with a lot of all these bouncing bomb dropping into him. So he really got to make sure that he keeps himself relatively healthy. Now, Control is just loitering around the river here, getting spotted out already, so he shouldn't really waste too much time. But they might just want to try to pick Minas off. But it looks to be unlikely, especially when you have Flash, Barrier, as well as, you know, the slice and dice just to get into the better positions.
Yeah, because he was on that ward, it's very easy for SBTC to grab the other Scuttle Crab instantly. So that is what happens. We get one Scuttle Crab for both teams, which is generally an indication that your early game is going pretty even. But an eagle-eyed viewer would spy this on the minimap. TF already invading, trying to change that. Harry will step up. They're going to get the Winter's Bite and force a flash over the wall on this weird aggression out of SBTC. trying to steal away a blue buff, and they lose out on it.
Kind of like an overcommitment overall, because he's not really in the position to smite it away when he possibly had a little bit of a room with both the Ezreal as well as the Janna moving upwards. So bottom lane matchup itself, I think this will go on pretty evenly. I won't expect them to just run at each other, especially when you have Janna as well as the Braum, which is more of a very defensive support. Some may also play a Braum aggressively, but you will have to wait for a level 5 if that's the case.
Yeah, that was very strange because otherwise SBTC, you know, as we talked about during the draft, ooh, that was unfortunate. True shot goes right into the Braum shield.
Okay, wasted. Yeah, as you're saying.
But otherwise, this early game is going to SBTC, right, Contra? They are winning all of these lanes kind of by default, as we talked about.
Yeah, overall, they can only scale to be even stronger, especially Kirill moving into the Trinity Force build, which is the optimum way to go around. If you're going to be behind, then perhaps head over to the Iceborne Gauntlet. But then again, you know, there's so many of all these mixed damage ratios that's coming out Bigetron Esports, especially when you have a Malphite that does also contribute magic damage alongside with Henry. Yes, it may not be too much of a burst, but it definitely does help overall. So SBTC Esports, they are just playing a little bit more reserved as compared to the usual tempo that we are seeing. I believe that this is a little bit of the playoffs pressure coming right in.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if that affects their gameplay. As we head out of this early game, Minas takes a fight against the Bigetron bottom lane, which lane swapped up there to top side. Bigetron do this, and I don't especially like it because it normally means they just don't get this dragon. But this time round, they seem to be making this play so that they can harass for a dragon. You see Vault 1 there as the Malphite, scary enough to force SBTC away from the first strike of the game, which is that all-important Ocean Drake.
Yeah, and another reason why they really want to swap over to this lane is just to make sure that Renekton doesn't get too huge for them to deal with later on, but they are going for an exchange, and here it comes.
Yep, here it is. Minas pops the Dominus, walks away. Heroic entrance falls short, and it looks like it will be the turret for Drake trade here. Normally, as I talked about, I don't especially like this for Bigetron, not because turret for Drake isn't decent on paper, but because they don't get, whoever they're playing tends to get much more than the Drake. They tend to be able to contest that bottom turret, as we saw here, clean out some of the jungle. And in this specific case, Contra, Bigetron don't even get the top turret in this exchange. So it's a pretty unequivocal gold lead being passed over to SBTC, as they do take advantage of Bigetron's split map pressure and take the bottom turret as the first break of the game.
Yeah, this was given for free towards SBTC, and I definitely agree with your sentiments right here as Bigetron Esports. If they really want to play towards that late game potential that they've always done before, then they need to actually put a lot more priority on the Drake, which they've also lost it to SBTC Esports. Not going to help too much now that SBTC Esports will have Renekton with a little bit more of the Omni Vamp, so he can survive a little bit better when it comes down to close quarter combat. Now, Aquino trying to actually scout things up ahead and forces both the Baron laners, well, Dragon laners that are now in the Baron lane, to just hug time.
Yeah, I got you. We do need to talk about the team fight, I think, at this point. This shouldn't be a contest from Bigetron. I think they're right not to contest it. I also think it's going to suck that SBTC have the Rift Herald, but you know, life does suck. That's one of the first lessons you learn. Your Rift Herald charge will be claimed by SBTC and is, of course, presented by Globe. So I want to talk a little bit about the SBTC team fight, because that's what's going to be very important in the next couple of minutes. Can you maybe talk about how that works?
Well, for SBTC, what they really want to do is just to set things up for a pick, just like how they are doing right here. Now, forcing Harry's health bar to drop real low just to secure the turrets, and they really have to move from here.
Duo really low back there, but you have so much poke potential. Oh! He finds two with the true shot. That was disgusting. A double kill from a single ultimate from Kiro.
I'm kind of irked that they have been hugging real tight. They could have actually hopped over and just leave it be. SBTC Esports, they've already got a full rotation hitting there, and the rest of Bigetron Infinity, they're not really responding just too well, especially when you have a Galio in your team. There is a potential to perhaps perform an outplay in particular, but now Harold now charging in towards the mid side, taking a couple of platings, but I don't think that they can secure it just about yet.
We talked about Kiral in the prelude to this game. We talked about how oftentimes the SBTC AD carry feels like the strength through which the early game is won, and here we get a demonstration of that. Julie in the mid lane, poking down the players, shredding the turrets, and Kiral is there. Ezreal Ziggs is going to do so much damage to the turrets and has so much long-range threat to close out these kills.
Right, Redemption now being popped over. I guess they just really want to bully out the bot laners. They was forced to retreat with the rocket jump backwards. Now going in for a little bit of reset before they prepare for the next streak. Now vision control is being set beautifully by SBTC while they just take away the blue buff away from Bigetron Esports. So more trouble lurks ahead. Now Bigetron, they kind of played a little bit too much of a respect towards the enemy lines, but Henry might just look for a pick.
Engaging, forcing the Winter's Bite. This is the counterpoint. Bigetron, as they scale up, are just going to be able to win team fights from this Tristana of Dua. And the way that works is, during the poke phase, is Harry lands the Winter's Bite, and then you proc it with the Tristana. Here's your Drake. Bolt will have ultimate. And SBTC are respecting that.
Yeah, and SBTC, they know for a fact that if Bigetron were to actually engage with their hits diving in first, they might also be in trouble now that they are all segregated, but the Redemption will be shoving them away. SBTC will regain the control of the entirety of the river, only for a slight moment from now. But it seems like Bigetron Infinity, they are in a way holding back for I don't know what reasons, but they need to take the first move no matter what, especially when you have control with the Cyclone at the ready.
They'll have another chance, everyone clustered. You don't get a better Malphite opportunity than this. But Bigetron don't seem to feel they have the engage. And there's the Cataclysm. Mega Inferno Bomb combo. Heroic entrance to try and answer, but already there's a player down. Falp knocked out of the team fight. TF comes out of GA and trades forward. TF and Minas are both slain on the engage, but there's so much damage. You can see Dua being able to stack up the kills and being traded right back by Kira and Julie, who are still pushing forward. Kiral in the mid lane, shredding this turret as Harry steps to the fore, protecting Harry from the engage. That will be an even trade around the Drake, but the Drake does get picked up successfully by SBTC.
Yeah, and this put composition coming in from SBTC Esports is just played all too well. Lower the health bars of Bigetron Esports before even giving them any sort of room to initiate, and we saw how low this Malphite was before he even get that chance for an unstoppable force. And in fact, did he even pull it out? I don't really think so. Well, Henry, he does have a lot of things that he can actually expend. He could also flash forward with the Shield of Duran to pull them all together to set the pace for control to knock them up in the air. But I'm not really seeing all too much of all these sort of the cohesiveness coming out from the likes of Bigetron Infinity as of now. But hopefully when desperate time calls for a desperate measure, they will be able to sync it all together for maybe a big team fight that they can actually take out of SBTC Esports.
I think probably the most important thing is, of course, this is, as Rika would say, a protect the queen composition. That queen being Tristana. And Dua got 2 kills now.
Yeah, now I guess that they will be hugging real tightly towards the top side of the map for now. A 4-1 split coming out for the side of SBTC Esports, while they do have the Renekton and TF. He just spotted out a clone, so they don't really have to commit all too much. Well, all they need to do, chunk their health bars down, and well, this problem is taking too much of a hit, so I don't think that he could do much but to drop in that Glacial Fissure.
Yeah, so much of Harry's time is being spent shielding turrets. True Shot hunts for his low HP bars. The Mega Inferno Bomb chunks him down as well. There's just so much poke. They've got one of those extendy grabby arms over on SBTC, and they're just using it to grab the HP bars of Bigetron and then walk through their undefended turrets. Another turret falls in the top lane.
Yeah, and then if this keeps carrying on, Bigetron Esports will just lose out eventually. So SBTC, they're just using the strengths to their advantage so far, and Kiro can only get stronger from here on. Just we check into the itemization. He's building the execution is calling. He doesn't really have to finish off his full item per se, but you know, you can even get the hands on the Blade of the Ruined King eventually, just to make sure none of these tanks will be rendered effective to actually get many of these things done.
But hear me out. You know what I really like? You know what I collect, Contra?
What's that? Well, no.
It's rocks.
Okay.
That's what I collect. And I want to see a really cool rock here from Pop 1, because we're hitting the game state, and I think SBTC are aware of this. That's why we're seeing this path down towards the Malphite in the bottom lane, where a good Malphite ult wins a team fight.
Yeah, I really do wonder what's in your collection overall, but with that,
I don't actually collect rocks, I'm sorry.
I'm disappointed now. I'm disappointed. I was hoping for something, and you were saying like, okay, cool rocks, right? Like, is there anything cooler than the Mega Rock? But seems like SBTC having TF getting in the very dicey situation, but he walks out away alive.
This is so many people are drafting Camille when you could be drafting Jarvan, who would lock down single targets and be able to do that in late game, be a secondary tank. And right there, the fact that TF can't be killed has just earned SBTC another Drake. They're going to get their third of the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I just don't know. VTR, they're kind of in this situation where they try to threaten the situation with a call for Baron, but this flank looks to be pretty good if he pulls in Unstoppable Force at the moment. It seems like Fat One doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, you can't fight Ziggs Ezreal in a choke point, and they're right to fall back on that. But now Phelps in trouble, caught inside the Cataclysm. Heroic Entrance will be spent to get Phelps out, as well as Phelps' flash. Oh, the True Shot! They find him! That is gross! Again, the double global ultimates hunt down an isolated kill. And now Bigetron need to play the next 30 seconds of the game with the Baron on the map at a player disadvantage. And SBTC are not going to wait around for anyone to respawn. Here's the pressure down mid. Minas chunking players' HP bars low. Harry's just got to run away. Henry's backing away as well. Bigetron are cowering inside of their fountain, and SBTC run this map.
Well, I just don't understand, why do you go for a Malphite pick if you're never going to be using your ultimate at any point of time given? Like, might as well try if this is going to be the case, and what is there to lose? You do have so many layers of defense, and Phelps, he walked into that bush, which was absolutely warded, and the Ziggs alongside with Carol will be able to punish all too easily without needing to commit anything at all. Now TF, he's getting caught over the wall.
He's going to be able to flag and drag to safety. So everything I've been hyping up for Bigetron, I do want to highlight. Yes, they're at a 10,000 gold lead, but all of the items are online. We are in full teamfight territory. Bigetron get one swing at this game, and it is right now.
Well, I really hope to actually see it, or else this Renton's just going to be hammering down that Imperial down bottom side as well. Now, they're trying to fall back, so it's kind of like a split decision when it comes down to this. And Minas is just doing everything right for SBTC.
Because everything I'm talking about with the team fight, it doesn't matter if Bigetron can't get the team fight. And they're going to be split when TF goes for the engage. This is a player advantage on the map to Bigetron, but it's instantly removed by the low HP as the Mega Inferno Bomb chokes players low. Harry's got to run for his life. Control's already back. Harry gets hunted down by Kirol, and Minas has survived the experience of split pushing, roamed all the way back to this Baron as SBTC reset their HP bars with this Monsoon. they're going to take the Baron. Here's Bigetron trying to steal. They're not going to get it. Your Baron power play presented by Globe is held by SBTC.
I don't see how Bigetron Esports can actually come back from this huge chunk of deficit that they have suffered. And well, for most part, it's absolutely given. I just have to just point out the obvious, right? Like, if you're having so much of all these crowd control and you're not really using it to effect, then it's absolute waste. Like, yeah, the items are coming up online, but it doesn't really hinder SBTC. Look at how fast they take down all these inhibitors. Now they can just put a chokehold overall onto Bigetron Esports. They cannot leave the base at any point in time. And the worst news is yet to come, because this is an Elder Infernal Drake, which most likely will go to the hands of SBTC Esports if Bigetron don't do anything about it.
I mean, I'm with you now. Before I was in the party of, okay, well, they'll scale up, you know, Bigetron don't quite have optimal team fight. Press the Malphite button.
Yeah.
He's got one button, press it. Otherwise, this game's going to be over. Here's Fop 1 with a chance.
The only time I see that
turret,
it's
it's
only
just
for the
gone. It's the siege engine, and Fop 1's in trouble. Mega Inferno Bomb, he's dead! He's just gone! And so are Bigetron. Monsoon resets this team fight. TF cuts off the retreat, and Kirol picks up the leftovers. Julie finds a double kill. That Nexus is gone, and Bigetron are down 1-0 in our first game of playoffs.
SBTC Esports playing this perfectly to their strengths. They understood how strong they are from the early game, and they took advantage of that. And for some reason, Bigetron Esports are looking to be holding themselves back for, I don't know why, but they really have to gather their strength all together, because we were expecting explosive team fights overall coming from Bigetron Infinity, and they were just absent overall in this game. And this just swings heavily to SBTC Esports once they manage to break down the turrets.
He was role-playing as a rock. He was just getting really into character. By that I mean, he didn't do a whole lot. But neither did my pet rock when I was in 2nd grade. I had a pet rock, and we drew a smiley face on it, and it looked a little bit like Fop 1's Malphite, in that it just kind of sat there.
Well, I'm pretty sure that he did a lot more than what your pet rock did. So let's give him that. So just look at SBTC overall. I think that they've already known the game plan is just to get this Malphite shut down. And from there onwards, you can just move on to any of all these objectives. But we'll be having a slight glimpse of what we have here for the Oppo Reno Flash play of the game. And it started off with a beautiful true shot barrage that landed straight into the line for that double on Kirol.
And I want to highlight, obviously, we're bullying Bigetron a little bit because it sucks they never activated the team fight composition. Because that's what they drafted for. This fight right here was the only time they took a 5v5, and they kind of won it. Like, they were down 4,000 gold, they weren't at their power spike, and they kind of won it. So I would have loved to see more of that aggression out of Bigetron. Over on SBTC, though, they just have such a cool composition. Between that Ezreal Ziggs, they can hunt down all these long-range kills you're seeing, but they also just absolutely demolish turrets.
Yeah, it happened a little bit too quickly, and Bigetron, they were all too hesitant on what exactly to do. They know that whoever goes diving in head first, they get blown up. And for Fop 1's case, he didn't even have to even get there to be blown up. So this is your match MVP overall, and it has to be Julie because he's been shredding health bars, and look at that DPM. Massive.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. A 9.0 KDA, and a huge part of that is just being able to sit at the back of these fights and poke and prod and chip away at the health bars of everyone. And that's something that's enabled by the draft, because not only do you have this Ezreal combining for poke damage with the Ziggs that Julie's playing, you also have so much kind of stoppage power. And some of that is the frontline tank. Obviously, you're benefiting a lot from having Jarvan. I'm a huge Jarvan advocate. I think Jarvan is a huge part of why it's so hard to engage into that team because the Jarvan will be in your backlines locking people down.
Mhm.
But also, you have just constant poke from Akano on the Janna as well. And the fact that Janna is constantly throwing tornadoes into your front line, maybe you do get into melee range and the monsoon hits and you're out of melee range again. That's the sort of stuff that makes it almost impossible to get onto the Ziggs. Ezreal, having said that, they did have a Malphite, so I would have thought that at least once that game, Bigetron would have been able to hit the Ziggs with a Malphite ultimate, and that would